MOMO, the book versus the movie. MOMO. And eventually I'll be also show you some films and scenes from the movie. So let's get started. Oh, this music is so good. Okay, okay, let's stop it right now. So let's talk about MOMO. And MOMO might be the best book ever written. But however, we might find out that there is a lot that happens. Now I'm gonna show you about the author's note from the movie, and this might be a little copyright issue, but I hope it's not something. Alright, I'll be showing you some clips of the movie itself, and the author notes of the book. It is said that the author got the idea of MOMO by getting the whole story from a guy who actually knew about MOMO. So this is the author. And then there's this man who sat right across him. Like, it's supposed to be there right now. And then this man goes in front of him. And then that man is one of the characters in the book, coincidentally. In this movie, by the way. But in the book, it said that this man is the guy who gave him MOMO. And eventually, in this scene of the movie, the author actually goes into the wrong spectacles, and he finds out about this image. This is when this happens. Yeah, it's a really long clip.
May I tell you a story? I'll tell it as though it were happening in the future.
It's one of the famous scenes in the book.
It had already happened. It makes no difference. It began at the edge of a large city.
And this is where this book and the movie starts. That scene I just showed you happened in the book at the end of the book. But however, in this movie, it happened a lot. And then there was this old sweeper. There's this old sweeper, by the way. I only got French subtitles. Sorry about it. So, eventually there's this Beppo guy who found MOMO. He saw a crock in the wall. Yeah.
Who are you?
MOMO.
Yeah. That's when MOMO said her name. MOMO. And she doesn't actually know how old she is, though. And she says she's about 100, and then she starts changing into 102. And then this is what happens. Eventually a lot happens, and MOMO gets out into the scene. We finally find out what MOMO looks like, by the way. I won't be showing any more video clips now. Sorry about it. And let's talk more about the movie and the book. In the book, MOMO is said to be a girl and pretty cool, and she doesn't know what she is. But she does know how to be in like a children's reserve and gets beaten all the day. And eventually there is a lot that happens, and well, there's this guy called Guido. It's this guy, by the way. This one with the hat. And he is given a guitar to play. In the book, however, he doesn't get a guitar. Yeah. And eventually, he is a guide, by the way. He's the guide of the tour city person. And this tour person, this guide, shows where MOMO lives. And MOMO is found in here. This is what MOMO looks like in the movie. And now that we know what she looks like, let's talk about what others look like in the movie. And eventually she gives out her sense of her best power. Listening to sounds as if it was music. That's the same thing that MOMO in the movie and MOMO in the book have in common. She listens so carefully to a lot of conversations, in fact, that everybody makes up. And MOMO starts living her own life own life and partially lives with Beppo, partially his teacher. Everything happens, and Momo and Beppo eventually live together. Beppo gets supper from Momo in the movie, but Albert doesn't. But in the book, he doesn't. And there's a lot of scenes that are interesting in the movie that are more interesting than the book. By the way, I have to say here that I'm gonna say here the movie is much more interesting than the book. So, and then the men in gray arrive. The men in gray arrive. And in this Man in Gray, there is probably the worst thing that can ever happen. The people don't think about what happens. Everybody thinks that they have all the time they have. And eventually they get a shadow across them. There's this species that looks like humans, but are not humans.
It got so cool all of a sudden.
Yeah. Wait a minute. There's this guy who is part of the Men in Black, who is said to be part of the time-saving blank. Eventually, there's this guy called Mr. Hopa, Professor Hopa, and Professor Hopa helps Momo into finding the secret of time itself, finding the secret of time, and how to defeat the Men in Black. I mean, Gray. Everything went with time to the last moment. And Professor Hopa was out there somewhere. And if you looked at my book report on Momo, you would have learned about Kaseya, who is a tortoise, who is Mr. Hopa's tortoise. We're almost there. Now in that scene, there is a lot that happens. Okay, so here is Mr. Hopa. Here is Mr. Hopa. And Mr. Hopa is really old. He's like forever old. This is Professor Hopa. And at the near end of the movie, she finds out about the truth of time. These lilies you're looking at, I'm going to show you right now, are all called hour lilies. And these hour lilies is time themselves. That's another common thing inside the book. Momo flies in the movie, and so does the book. There are a lot of similarities, many similarities, more similarities than the differences in this book. And then they all reunited all the way back into a family reunion. Everybody found out they had spare time left now. The time that the Men in Gray had stolen. And how time was stopped is Mr. Hopa sleeping. Everybody celebrated Momo's return. And Mr. Hopa finds out about everything that happened with Momo. And then Cassandra coughed a lot. And from there was a lot that happened. If you're anybody who can speak French, who can read and speak French, then please read these for me. Because I can't. I'm not a French person. This is where I would end this episode. And as I said earlier, both of these things can help us, teach us how to use time wisely and how to save it wisely. Everything, every time, every minute we ever use now is precious. Just what the Men in Gray had said. But instead of teaching people to save it, they stole it from people. The important lesson in the movie and the book is that save time and use it wisely. Do not give up your time for something useless you think it is. But if it is actually useful, then actually use your time against it because it is useful. So I hope I enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Also, I hope you did too. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you in the next episode. Out. Peace.